I'm accustomed to being noticed and recognized for things. So that part comes relatively easy with the support I have, but I feel like I'm a pretty humble person. Like I still get like shy when people are like, oh, it's the champ. Like, like I like to fly under the radar.
Welcome to Create Up with Will Ennis. That's me. This is a podcast on leveling up both creatively and in life. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 14. I'm Will Ennis, and today, I'm in the zone because, my guest is Jamey Horth. Jamey Horth is one of the top fighting prospects in the country. Not only is she extremely dangerous in the ring, but she's refreshingly humble about it, and is just a very kind human being. This is a very interesting episode because we get to delve into the psychology of a top-level performer, and we're talking about the high-stakes world of mixed martial arts. We talk about how she prepares for battle, how she's overcome adversity to win, what a professional fight feels like, and a whole lot more. Her next match is against the top Brazilian prospect Mayra Cantuaria. They will battle for the Women's Flyweight Championship, which will be available to watch worldwide on UFC Fight Pass Friday, December 10th, 2021, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. By the way, this interview was recorded in 2 parts, and for some reason, video footage for part 1 was lost, but not part 2. So if you're listening on YouTube, you can also watch us about halfway through. But anyway, regardless, here's my talk with Jamey Horth. Jamey Lynn Horth Wessels, not in the flesh, but on Zoom. So great to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I'm talking to a pro MMA fighter. This is my first time ever talking to one, but I've always been fascinated by the sport of fighting. It feels weird calling it a sport because it feels like it's a bit more higher stakes than just like the game of basketball, the game of football. It's like fighting just seems like it's in a whole different category. I don't know if you feel that way.
Well, coming out of playing high level soccer for years, definitely like it's a different atmosphere. It's, it's very team oriented with the team that you build, during training camp, but a very, very strange feeling being in there. It doesn't feel very sport like. It feels very primal, actually.
Yeah, I would think so. It's funny. People often use fighting, like what you do is usually the metaphor that people use for something tough in their lives.
Yeah.
Like even last night, my friend and I, we did like an open mic. We played some music in front of some strangers. We were nervous. And as we're walking up, I go to my friend, we're going to battle. And he perks up and goes, yeah, we're going to battle. You literally go into battle, and regular people just use it as a metaphor for tough shit.
Yeah. Like I consider it to be like almost like having a split personality, because you do hype yourself up like you're going to battle, like you're almost like a Viking, you're getting ready for war, right? So it is war, man. It's war for sure. Like it's kill or be killed sort of mentality, but
absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty different. I've never thought of it that way.
When you're rearing to go, do you feel, so you really feel like, yeah, it's kill or be killed? Like it just channels a deeper part of you. Is that what it is?
Oh, for sure. Like everything's going on. Like you have to go to the bathroom like 25 times because like you're nervous, but then you're excited, and then you're like trying to implement this game plan. So all the feelings are going on, but yeah, you pretty much tune in to what you're supposed to do, and then you tune out on everything else. So, I mean, I go in there and after a fight, I don't remember what I did in the cage. So I literally will have to go back and watch fight footage for the most part. I don't remember. Like I've been dropped once. For the first time I got dropped. So I got punched and kind of blacked out sort of in a will. And I don't remember, like, and it wasn't because I got knocked out. It just, I don't remember. I was like, I didn't get knocked down. They're like, yeah, you did. And I was like, no, I didn't, but I did. And it's just that it's like your body, everything like just becomes mechanical.
Yeah.
And it becomes second nature. It's just, everything just handles on its own. It's almost like you're on autopilot. So
was this when you were training, or was this one of your pro fights? When was this?
I got dropped in my 3rd pro fight when I was fighting in Quebec. When I was fighting in Quebec, which was definitely like a whole different ballgame of like adversity. I'd never fought anywhere other than like my hometown. like Vancouver. So I'd never fought anywhere else. So I definitely had like a lot of different variables playing into that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty strange. It was a bit of a different feeling for sure going into that fight.
It's weird, as a civilian watching, when I see, like, let's say a boxer, for example, get dropped, it's usually like, oh, like he's on the ropes, or he or she's on the ropes, and it's sort of game over. But like, what do you do to because you're undefeated, you're pro undefeated. So when you get dropped, I would think some part of you might go into panic mode. How do you stay out of panic mode?
Instinct, right? Like practice, like you drop, it's like you need to hit the ground, you need to get right back up. Like you're in a game, like you don't click back in like this is it. You know what I mean? We don't get to come back and have a second half or a fourth quarter. You know what I mean? It's like you got 3 5-minute rounds in a regular fight and 5 5s in a championship fight. So it could be a 1-minute fight. It could be a 25-minute fight. Like you don't get to go 60 minutes, like, or 90 minutes in a soccer game. Right. So you just know, like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, you just know, You're like, I have to get back up. And like, instantly I put my foot out to keep her away from me. And I was like, okay, like, get it together, get up and figure this out. Like, let's go.
Wow. Do you think that it's like luck being able to step back up? Like, is it preparation to be able to get back up when you've been knocked down? Or is it the luck of the shot? Like, I know some shots, someone gets hit with a shot, they're not coming back up.
Yeah, I think for sure that it definitely depends on sort of what strike or so you've been hit with. And like what that person's doing. Like if someone hits you and they fall right on you and they continuously hit you, that's one thing. But if they hit you and then you kind of stagger and you fall back and then you're still like not engaged with that person, they're kind of like waiting to see what happens. You get a few split seconds to kind of be like, oh, okay, actually I'm okay. And then, too, like maybe just like, I wasn't hit as hard as I thought. And like, I kind of just got wobbly for a second. I fell.
Yeah.
So there's so many different variables when it comes to that kind of stuff. But boxing, there's some pretty savage ones. Those 16-ounce gloves are pretty nasty.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would think the gloves you guys use would be a bit more devastating.
Sure. But it's like boxers, like, they just take so much more damage. They're just constantly getting hit in the head, right? They don't have to worry about kicks. There's no wrestling. There's not as many, to me, in my opinion, there's not as many breaks. You know what I mean? Like they're in the pocket, like they're constantly throwing on each other. They're punching each other. They're uppercutting, they're hooking. Like MMA's got that little bit of that break, whereas like there's sometimes you're up against the cage. Sometimes you're wrestling, Muay Thai, you can stand back as you're using your kicks and your legs. So there's a little more like space in between, if you will.
For sure. And it also seems cerebrally more complex what you do, because there's so many tools. You got to be good at the ground, or you got to be a damn good striker so you don't go to the ground.
Yeah.
And there's probably a million angles that I don't even know. But I would just think, yeah, it must be such an ordeal to be like, I'm going to do MMA where someone can hit me with their leg, they can choke me, they can punch me, they can do a Matrix style backflip and end up behind me. Like,
Yeah.
So I was looking up on you online and I couldn't find any videos, and I was wondering why that is, for one. But I see you're the top ranked fighter pound for pound in Western Canada. But then it said number 2 ranked fighter in all of Canada, but you beat the number 1 ranked fighter. So does that frustrate you? Was it Corinne Laframboise or something?
Yeah, that was the fight that I got dropped in Quebec. I fought her for TKO. It's so weird how those things work. Like it's a weird sort of like, it just depends. Like she's had more fights than I have. Since we fought, she's fought a bit more. So like it bumps you up like on your fights. It doesn't necessarily go off just your record. It's activity as well. Like, so there's lots of different like factors when it comes to the Tapology records. But yeah, it can be frustrating when you see things like that. I tend not to like worry myself with those things because I guess the motto is everything happens for a reason, especially during COVID and all the postponed fights and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's silly because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Yes.
I know it's crazy. And I really do wish that I could watch your fights. Like you're everything I've read about you is like, you're up and coming, you're like a force. And I want to see more of you getting down, like that's.
So what happened with was with the promotion I fought most of my fights for here in Vancouver at Battlefield. Fight. What they do is they've kept their fights and not given them to us, and we haven't got any fight footage from them, because I think what happens is like these companies keep their fights like almost like they're making like a bank of them. So like if they are to sell, that they have stuff to give to whoever they sell into. So Battlefield's actually now working, I think, with Fight Pass.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that they'll have like eventually put all of our fight like stuff will be on there. I know my fight for TKO in Montreal is on there.
Yeah.
And I have some footage from this last fight I had that I can send to you after for sure if you want to take a look.
Oh my God. Yeah. I love it. I mean, yeah, like I've most of the stuff I've seen is UFC and boxing, and I love watching fights. I mean, I'm by no means am I like an expert. Like there's so much I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just something about it. It's so primal. It's so energizing. I wanted to ask you about the Contender Series. I read about how you were almost on Dana White's Contender Series, but then COVID got in the way, as it got in the way for so many people. And I was wondering, are you in talks to get back there? I feel like you must be. Like,
we were just in discussion with our agency about it, because they had another one come up, and it's so frustrating. Like I was supposed to fight there. We thought maybe last May that they were supposed to run Contender Series, and then COVID happened. So they postponed everything till October. And then I was supposed to fight in October, and then the UFC was fighting in Vegas at the Apex.
Yeah.
And they were fighting in Abu Dhabi during COVID, right? So they were kind of going back and forth. So when they would go to Abu Dhabi, they would put on like more events than just go there for one event. So they would put on like one every week or one every 2 weeks. So we were supposed to fight in October, and then they postponed it to November because they went back to Abu Dhabi for 5 weeks. So they pushed us back for the last 2 episodes of the Contenders.
Yeah.
And then 2.5 weeks before I was supposed to fly out, I'd had all my MRIs and stuff done. I got a message from our UFC attorneys and my agency saying that they weren't going to give us a visa.
Oh man, that fucking sucks.
And then there's a couple other guys in the same boat. One from Achilles from Vancouver, another guy, and they just said international recognition. So was there nothing that we could have done or changed to make that thing go through? So that really stung, because I'd been pretty much preparing for like my opportunity to fight for Contenders since basically May 2020.
Yeah.
After I fought in February, I kind of took a little bit of time off and then like pretty much got right back into it. So it was a very long, drawn out roller coaster of training and emotions to finally get that final result to be kind of swept out from underneath you. It was really frustrating.
For sure. So what is the next, what's the next move? What's the next goal that you're focusing on?
Honestly, just having anybody say yes to a fight. I've had about 6 no's since last November. We've reached out to a few different promotions. My agents are constantly looking for fights, and we've had girls. We've been offered someone. We've said yes, and then they go back and they say, "Okay, well, do you want to fight Jamey?" And then they say no, or whatever it is.
Because they're scared.
I mean, I don't want to speculate. I'm not too sure exactly, but when it comes to women's fighting, a 4-0 all 4 finishes record is very deterring for a lot of fighters. I've never said no. I'll never say no. We got offered a girl 20-9 or 24-9. So she literally had like 25 more pro fights than I did, and still said no. I offered to fight at 135 instead of 125, and that was a no. And so it's been very frustrating. Like I try to just take it and harness that sort of like frustration and use it for like this next opportunity whenever that arises. But there's talks of maybe fighting in January, which is kind of a little bit of a distance from now, but that's kind of what we're hoping for until anything comes sooner.
So when you're not fighting, or when you don't have a scheduled fight, are you 9 to 5 training for fighting? And like, what does that look like? This is the office.
This is my office. This is my life. I stopped working full time last August in preparation for Contender Series. And then I just started focusing my time here. So I actually just finished up. We started working with the First Nations. We have a First Nations program running out of the gym here. So I just had the younger kids and the teens classes just come through.
Nice. Are you First Nations?
I'm not, no.
Oh, okay.
No, the band, we have a good connection with them. So they have some programs that they run through the nation. So we've tag teamed up with them, and we had like probably like 40 kids in here just a few minutes ago.
Oh, that's awesome. You're teaching them martial arts and things like that?
Yeah. So they come in. It's super awesome to be able to kind of give back to the community that way. And so yeah, that's kind of my job, is that I coach and I do privates here, and my schedule is more flexible, so it allows me to travel and train like I'm preparing for a fight all the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What martial art are you teaching them?
Right now we're just learning kickboxing.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, the kids are just learning some striking and like boxing, kickboxing, like hands, and we're adding a little bit of kicks because they seem to love it. So they just want to smash pads. Like a lot of these kids, in not just in the First Nations programs, but the other programs we run, a lot of these kids need to exert themselves. Like when COVID happened, a lot of sports things got put on hold. And to be fair, like practicing is great, but kids don't want to practice. They want to play games, they want the adrenaline. They want to like let that out. So when COVID happened, a lot of organized sports kind of went down and took a little time out. And unfortunately, fortunately for us, it didn't really affect us that way. Like we are allowed to continue to run our programs. And although we aren't having kids fight in tournaments and fight in fights, hitting the pads and hitting the bag is very like therapeutic.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I wanted to switch topics real quick to how the public sees fighting. And, they probably know it from, that the big stage of the UFC for the most part, and the trash talk that happens. And people seem split. I have to admit, I find trash talk can be pretty enjoyable and entertaining from time to time. But I understand people can have problems with it. I was curious, your take on trash talk in the sport of fighting. What is your take on it?
I mean, to be fair, I feel the same as you. I'm not a trash talker. I've had promotions be like, can you say some stuff? Like, can you kind of like hype it up a little bit? And I'm like, but it's just not me. Like, it just feels so forced, like sending me to acting class. I'm not that good at it, but I love it. I think it's great. I think that, unfortunately, like this is the way the business is. It's the entertainment business. People want to see that. Like that's what they're tuning in for. Like it sucks in the sense, like the other part of that I'll counter with is that I feel like a lot of times the actual like art of martial arts kind of gets lost a little bit in that.
Yep.
But at the same time, like Dana White's he's not stupid. Like it's the entertainment business, right? And these guys want to make a name for themselves. Like you have to stand out. You can't just be the guy standing in the back with the plain white t-shirt. Like you get lost in the crowd, right? So it's like everything, like celebrity, good news and bad news, like being in publicity that's what everybody wants, whether it's good or bad, So I like it. I support it, but at the same time, like I just don't do it for myself.
Do you think it would, do you think it's for entertainment? Do you think it's also a tactic to get in an opponent's head, or do you think it's just for entertainment? I think you would know better than anybody.
I think it's both. Like it's definitely both. And then sometimes you'll see like people that are like overly doing it and you're like, hey, maybe they're like a little bit like not confident. Right. So it kind of has that sort of tail on it too. Like you can see it from both sides that way, but it totally is like a tactic to be like, I'm the better guy. I'm the bigger guy, like getting in somebody's head. It's a mind fuck, if you will. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And it's a huge fall from grace for someone who does trash talk and then gets humbled.
I've had a few of those sort of styles.
Oh yeah, you've had people kind of like getting in your face or talking shit, and then it's
like I was 2-0 as an amateur, and I fought somebody that had like a lot more fights, and she, props to her, she always put on a good show. Like she came out in like costume sort of style walkouts, and like when she fought me, I'd watched her fight to win the belt before I ever fought her, and I was like, man, that girl's like so good, like that. Look at her walk out, like it was so intimidating, and then I had the opportunity to fight her. And I remember clear as day, she called me the Roger Rabbit. She said, man, that Jamey girl just runs around the ring. She's like the Roger Rabbit. She's always on her horse. Like, and it's so funny. It's funny. Like, we're friends now, but like at the time I was just like, man, who is this chick calling me Roger Rabbit? And I, she walked out and she was wearing like the orange and, or the yellow and red, Hulk Hogan, Hulkmania sort of costume. We had a boa on. She came out with the glasses. It was super extravagant. And I beat her that fight. All 5 rounds, I dominated that entire fight, and I won the belt that night. So for me personally, this is why I don't do it, because there's the fact that you lose, and you lose on that platform. And I think for myself, it's a little more embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that. Also, it's like you got to be true to yourself.
Of course, right. And then that's her thing, and that's the way she does it, and I respect that 100%. And like I said, everyone's got their own sort of style and spin on how they like to come across, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, how would you describe your style? What is your style, whether it's fighting or how you display as a fighter or market yourself?
I feel like I'm a pretty humble person. Like I still get like shy when people are like, oh, it's the champ. Like I kind of like, oh, thanks. Like, like I like to fly under the radar. I come from a really small town, and I've always been like in the local newspaper for soccer and stuff like that. So like, I'm accustomed to being noticed and recognized for things. So that part comes relatively easy with the support I have. But I don't know. I just like to just give back, and I just like to like be humble, and I'm a pretty on the line of the fence kind of person. So
nice.
At least that's what I think about myself. I mean, other people in the gym might think other than me, but I feel like I'm a pretty chill.
If you kick somebody's butt, maybe they'd have a different feeling. But actually, it sounds like you make friends with people that you fought with. Is that common?
I do. Yeah. It depends. Like I'm communicate with the girls that I fought from Quebec, like via social media and stuff. Like that's a pretty easy way for a lot of people to stay connected. You follow one another and you like each other's stuff, and you support one another. For women in the sport, which is a total different topic, there's not a lot of us, and it can be difficult. So we tend to like band together, and here in the Lower Mainland where I am in Squamish, I'm the only female fighter out of the gym. And for the most part, all the way through Vancouver, Langley, each gym has sort of like a token female.
Yeah.
And so Mondays and Wednesdays, there's like 4 or 5 of us that meet every Wednesday down there, and we train and we kind of get together. Like I fought Lupita. She's in the UFC now. Yeah. I fought her twice through my career. So we tend to train quite a bit now. So
she's in the UFC now, and okay, cool. How do you get into the UFC if not through Contender Series? There must be other ways.
Short notice fights, like it just depends. There's, my understanding of it, there's ways that like your record. And matchups, like you have a good record. Obviously your social media and like how you present yourself could be another way. Like they like lots of loudness and things like that. And then coming through Canada when they do circuits and they do run the UFC events through Canada. That's how my brother-in-law Cole got in. Yeah. Tristan Connolly got in on a short notice fight with that as well. So So there's definitely those kind of options. But
and they know, and you're on their radar too. And I'm sure, like, does Cole give you any advice on, or is he a person of advice for you or anything? Because since he's there, or.
Oh yeah, he's one of my main training partners here. He's here in Squamish. Yeah, nice. He's here. Yeah, he's one of my main training partners. He runs quite a few of our fight team classes, our pro classes. Yeah. So like I train, like I said, I'm the only female here. So 9 times out of 10, it's me and the guys. So I've pretty much grown up just fighting with the guys.
Would you prefer fighting with the guys just for training in general? Like, would there be benefit to that? A little more different?
I like it, but I do think that women and men fight differently.
Yeah.
For sure. I do think that. And
in what way? In what ways?
I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit different. Like it's women can be like mean, man. and a little bit more like methodical and tactical in different ways. And it can go that way for men as well. But I just feel like when I spar with the guys, that are my weight and my like ability. It's different than when I spar with the girls that are my weight, my ability. I don't know. I just feel like strength wise, sometimes, you know, like it's not a secret, you know, guys' upper body strengths can be a little bit different than women's. And some of those things come into play when you're sparring. So, that makes things different between the two genders for sure.
Yeah. And I can imagine if you have an opponent that's sort of built a certain way, you kind of want to train to them as well.
Yeah. For me, most times, the women that I fight tend to be under 5'6".
Yep. So you're 5'7"?
I'm 5'7.5", just about. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So are you more of a striker in general, or?
I started out that way. And I started out as a striker, and then my grappling, and then my striking, and then my grappling. And then I kind of fluctuate between the two because it just depends on what I'm focusing on more at that time. Sometimes I get away from wrestling because I'm sore or something. So I just end up striking, and then vice versa. But I feel like now, because I came from no martial arts background, I didn't have any sort of like taint on the sport. So I kind of had to start from the ground up. So everything kind of grew together.
Oh, nice.
So
and you were,
I always considered myself to be a striker, but when you start becoming a professional and there's knees and elbows and you're using the cage wall and you're wall fighting and you're wrestling, I feel like I've become very well-rounded.
Yeah. And do you see like it's evolved in the past couple of years, like techniques that fighters will generally, what you will generally see in a fight that maybe you that wouldn't have been happening 3 or 4 years ago, just technically?
Oh, 100%. Like one thing I can come to my mind right away is calf kicks.
Yeah. I've heard about that. Isn't that what fucked up Connor in his last fight?
Yeah, and Anderson Silva and
that was brutal. And there's one
Anderson
more guy.
Silva broke his leg on what's his name? And then who he broke his leg on, that guy broke his leg on his next fight. And then Connor broke his leg fighting Khabib. Yeah. So
are you scared at all of getting a nasty injury? Because those ones are clean breaks at the shin. It's like, oh, so gross.
I mean, I don't really think about it. Like now I'm thinking about it, but I don't really think about it while I'm training. I definitely like you get the, you know, Charlie horse and you get the calf, like the nerve pain and stuff from taking too many calf kicks. So you get those, I feel like I constantly have naggy little injuries. You know what I mean? I'm getting kicked in the punched in the head. Like if I'm not hurt, like there's something wrong.
Are you ever worried about getting hurt in training? Because I think that's what they said about Connor. One of the stories was that he injured the leg in training. And then,
I think for sure he was preparing for that fight, knowing that those calf kicks were so devastating in that previous fight he had. So I think he was training for that. And I think there was a fracture already present before that fight. Like it was already a weak spot. Sorry, you said, do I think,
I mean, do you worry about that? Like, do you actually, I kind of forgot where we were going with this.
You said, you were saying, do I get hurt during training or have I been hurt?
Yeah.
Yes. I separated my shoulder, September 2019. Training actually just had my arm stuck and landed. And normally when you land, like you just kind of roll through, and I landed and everything just went that way and this way and tore some stuff in my back, around my shoulder blade, separated my shoulder. I'd never had like a bad injury like that. So I was sitting on the mats and I remember like being like, hey, I can't really lift my arm. My collarbone's intact. Like it's not dislocated. Like everything's there, but like I couldn't get my shirt off. I couldn't lift my arm. And I was training about an hour and a half from my hometown. So I had just gotten in the car and being stubborn and never having an injury. Like, so I drove home because I was hungry. And I went to bed that night, and then I couldn't get out of bed the next morning. I couldn't sit up. I was like, also, I had a 3rd degree separation in the shoulder joint. I still have like a little one, but I didn't have surgery. I just, the next day my strength and conditioning coach is like, hey, well, we can't use the shoulders. We'll still work the legs. Like we're not stopping. So, it was like the Wednesday night, and on Friday I had strength and conditioning, and I was in physio the next day. So.
Oh, wow. And then when was your fight? When was your next fight from that injury? Like how far away was your next fight?
2018. I was supposed to fight in December and then, or October. So I was about 4 weeks out from a fight, and then it ended up falling through, and we never pulled out.
Wait, was that the Contender Series situation?
No, Contenders was supposed to be the beginning of 2020.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I ended up fighting in February, right before Contenders of 2020, and then Contenders was supposed to be May. But this was like 5 months before my last fight and about 7 months before Contender options.
Oh man. So then going into that next fight, how were you feeling? Like what was your health level when you went into your very next fight? If you're going to say out of 100%, how healthy were you at that next fight?
Probably about 70%. I would like my shoulder was just so tired and so much inflammation and damage in there that I can't just not use it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have to use it. And so I was doing everything I could. And like, I would just get like burnt out. So like my hands would just like drop. I would just like fatigue out and I couldn't keep this arm up. So pretty much, it was a touch and go there for a while.
Were you throwing more kicks in that fight, or did you try to just get them to the ground? Like, how did you compensate for that?
That fight, we did work on a lot of kicks. We were throwing lots of head kicks for the first while and she kept picking up on that. So when going into the third round, my coaches are like, okay, like we've been throwing head kicks from southpaw. Let's work the body because she thinks it's coming up top. And that's how that fight finished, was a liver shot.
Oh, damn.
So it was a game plan decision between the second and third round to push the plan that we had, which was lots of switch head kicks and body kicks and just work those kicks. Mm-hmm. Because the girl I fought was a lot more of a boxer style too. So it was either take her to the wall and drag her down or just kick her head off.
Do you feel, is it like from your training or your mind or just your athletic background that you just kind of have your way with your opponent, that you do feel like you're on a higher gear or what?
I do feel like I have a pretty good sense of like my body, like inside and out. Like I it's not like a sixth sense, if you will, but I just feel like I see things. Like I look at people when I'm training and I'm like, okay, I kind of know what they're going to throw. Like, I feel like I'm ready for what they're going to throw. I don't feel threatened. Like going into the fight, like, you're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? Like, this is going to be nuts. Like I'm locked in a cage with somebody. And then as the fight goes on, you start to read people. Like I'm very good at kind of collecting my emotions. And then in doing so, I kind of can read what you're doing, what you're feeling, and like how you're going to react, you know?
Yeah. I imagine it'd be very intimate. Like, is there a lot of eye contact in a fight? And are you almost like reading their mind a bit? Or is it more you're reading their body, how they're moving? It's
a bit of both. Like when I first walk out and like when they're walking out and coming into the cage, I don't look at them. Like I don't care to look at them. Like it doesn't matter to me. Like I'm just like zoned in. Yeah. But when you touch gloves and then you back up, like I'm constantly looking at your eyes because like you look where you're going to throw half the time. You're not like looking over here and throwing over here. So like, you know, like peripheral vision is very important. You can see people's hips and the way they're moving their body like that. But it's a lot of keeping an eye on their face and just being aware of where their eye level is. If their eye level is dropping, they might shoot in on you. Yeah. If their eye level is staying high, that means they're striking. So like definitely watching the eyes for sure.
Are there little like fakes? Like, you know, in basketball, you do a head fake. Like, are there little fakes you do as if you're going to go hit them with a gut shot, but then like you do like a roundhouse kick to the head? Like, is there any little like, you know, you move your foot just a little bit to make them think you're preparing? And
we call them feints. So like you'll like paw out a jab, you'll paw it out, and like you try to draw a reaction out of your partner or your opponent. So if I paw out, you put your hands up, I'm like, okay, the body's open.
Yep.
Right. So I'm going to come here and then I'm going to go low or whatever. Right. So I have to like play with your opponent to see what they're going to do and what they're going to pick up on, because like not every game plan A works. I need to use game plan B or C or D. Right. So we're prepared with like, you know, like different plays, if you will.
Yeah. I that makes me think of different sports. Some sports say a good defense is a strong offense. And I was wondering if some fighters are just generally more on the defense, and with a strong offense, you kind of don't have to worry about like you're dictating the fight and not being dictated to.
Oh yeah. There's definitely fighters out there that run the show. Like you just know that about them. And there's definitely a lot of fighters that are very aggressive.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of fighters that are very defensive. So like I'm a counter striker for a lot of times. So like I'll take a punch or I'll see a few punches and then I'll step in after that.
Oh, nice.
So there's definitely those types of fighters for sure. Like we're categorized, if you will, and it depends on who you're fighting. If you're fighting someone that's a little bit more aggressive, you kind of have to be a little bit more aggressive back. Mm-hmm. If your defense isn't as great, mm-hmm. right? So there's ins and outs of it for sure. Yeah. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, you want to be a little bit more aggressive. You want to be the one that's dictating the dance. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be the one that's always just sitting on the back.
Cool. Well, I know you probably have training to get to. What are you doing after this? You're doing more training tonight?
We have my fiance, my head coach. He just came in, just like there's about 15 people up front. We start at 6. We have no gi. So we'll do an hour of like drilling and stuff with our partners. And then we do 5-minute grappling rounds after that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you do that, basically do something like that every day. And I won't keep you because I know you know.
No, it's cool. My training schedule is about 6 days a week. Monday, I go down, I have a striking coach in the city. Then I get an hour break and then I go to a wrestling class. Then I come home, and then Tuesday, same sort of thing. I do my privates in the morning. I have a strength and conditioning session. And then I come back and I do this class tonight, which is no-gi. Wednesday, I drive down, we do sparring. We just do 5-minute, like full fight rounds. With some drilling. And then Thursday, same thing. We come here, we do some kickboxing. Friday, fight team. We do some big glove sparring and stuff. Saturday, big glove sparring. And then Sunday's open mat. So we do we come in, everybody gets a good warm up. So it's about an hour long. And then we do 10 5-minute rounds of wrestling.
Oh, wow. What would your day off be? Like, do you do vacations? Do you do anything that's just to unplug? Yeah.
I take Thursday off. Actually, yeah, I just got back. I was up in Armstrong, just in the interior. My mom lives up there. We're born and raised here in Squamish, but she's up there and she's got a horse. She works at a stable. So that was super nice. Kind of just went up there for 12 days. And like literally, to me, it was nice, but other people might think it's strange. Just scooping horse shit and like feeding the horses and like just living the farm life. So that for me is nice. Built a rock retaining wall. Like I like to be active no matter what I'm doing, but it's nice to disengage from fighting and like give my body a break and like do something else.
But also still a bit physical, right? Like farming.
I just got back from a 2-day hunting trip in Cranbrook.
Oh, sick.
So it's hunting season. So my dad and my sisters and we hunt together. So that's pretty fun.
Did you catch anything?
I didn't this trip, but my brother-in-law and another one of our friends on the same trip, they just shot another elk yesterday, actually. So they've got 2 elk. And then my dad has an elk tag that we're going to be hunting here in Squamish this October. They only give out a couple of them, and he got one. So. Oh,
that's awesome. My girlfriend and I were just on a farm, and they had pork there, and we had some some grass-fed pork, and it's so different than like what you get in the store. So I can imagine I'd love to hunt an elk and then eat it over the fire.
What I did for my last fight, I shot my first deer 2 years ago, and that's how I did my whole fight camp was my deer meat. So.
Oh man, that must have felt extra primal. You know what I mean? You're like killing your food and then killing in the ring.
Yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
So we cut the interview here because Jamey had to go train her students. Jamey, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. It was an honor. I wish you continued success. And for all the listeners, you can follow Jamey on IG at Jamey Horth. That's JameyHorth. You can find out details on her fights there. And remember, her next fight is coming soon. You can catch it on UFC Fight Pass, Friday, December 10th versus Mayra Cantuaria. I am definitely going to be watching. This is for the Women's Flyweight Championship. It's a big deal. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. Follow me on IG at Create Up Podcast. All right, that's all I got to say. Take care. Have a great week.